We often hear people talk about air quality, and usually they're talking about outdoor air quality. But today I want to talk about indoor air quality, specifically when it comes to mold. The scary part about this and the type of quality that we're talking about in air is that people don't even know that mold in their indoor air could be affecting their health. And today I'm talking to the man known as the mold medic, Michael Rubino. Good to see you this morning.
Good to see you too. Thanks for having me.
So tell me how you got into this, and specifically how dangerous indoor air quality can be and how it can be affecting our health, and we might not even realize that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, basically I've been around construction my entire life. Since I'm 5 years old, my dad was a contractor. So being around construction, and he was a restoration contractor as well, typically with fires. And, as you know, when you have a fire, it gets put out with water. One of the big things with mold can actually be impacted by, because water obviously gives it the opportunity for mold to grow. At that point, just being exposed to these things and seeing how, in retrospect, the way insurance companies looked at mold and things like that, I think a lot of restoration, even still today, unfortunately, doesn't get done properly and gives us this false sense of security. So when it comes to mold exposure and indoor air quality, you have these particles that get into our body, typically at high amounts, can really disrupt our immune system. Some of the symptoms you'll really hear about is brain fog, chronic fatigue, respiratory disease and respiratory infection, allergy-like symptoms like the onset of a cold that quite never goes away. So it's confusing because it can correlate to so many other diagnoses, but I think if you're not feeling well, you really want to include indoor air quality as part of the picture in optimizing your health.
How would someone even know? You maybe you have a cold, you just think it's a cold, but do you always see mold? Should you be looking for it, or is it invisible?
Well, it actually, it's so small that it's 25 times smaller than what the naked eye can see. So when you do see it on your wall, there could be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of it present,
Mm.
colonized in that one area. So most of the time it's going to be hidden behind a wall cavity, or some sort of leak that's been ongoing for a while that you may not be aware of. So it can make things a little tricky. What you want to do is, if you want to see if mold is a problem, you should hire a mold inspector to do testing of the home to identify what's there, how much of it, how much is there, and what you need to do about it. You also can actually test the body as well to see if there's mycotoxin exposure created by these sources of mold, and that can correlate with the data found testing in the home.
So, how many people do you think are affected by mold toxins and they don't know it?
And they don't know it, it's hard to say. When we look at all the diagnoses surrounding mold toxicity, we estimate that it's between 80 and 100 million people that are
Mm.
impacted in the US alone. So how many of those people don't know? I would say probably 30 to 40% are walking
Mm.
around and have no idea.
They're just sick. They always have a cold or allergies, and they're taking allergy medicine, not realizing it could be something in their home.
Yeah, and think about it. We take 20,000 breaths per day. You're
Mm.
consuming more air than water or food, or supplements for that matter. And we never even think about air quality in something that can impact our health. And it's probably the most detrimental to our health.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so step number one, have yourself tested, have your home tested. What do you recommend?
I would say do both, because I think it's a two-part process. You have to remove yourself from the exposure. So you do that by, remediating the home, fixing the mold issues that are prevalent inside the home. But you also need to, quote unquote, remediate the body. And how we do that is we detoxify. We get the mold, the mold and the toxicity that it creates out of our body, taking things like binders, seeing a functional medicine or a naturopathic doctor to help kind of change your diet and lifestyle.
So let me just be sure that I'm really clear. So if there's mold in your home and you're having symptoms, maybe the brain fog you said, or allergy-like symptoms, are you saying that it kind of establishes itself in your body? So just leaving the home or the area where you might be having the mold exposure isn't enough, like it lives in your body?
Yeah, so it actually will like disrupt the intestinal, GI tract. Definitely messes with the
Mm.
gut microbiome, and there is a level of inflammation that it creates, where you actually do want to detoxify the toxins out of your
Mm.
body. Uh, people do feel better when they remove themselves from the exposure, but I would say to really get that 100% back, you would definitely want to probably intentionally detoxify and go on like an anti-inflammatory diet.
Wow, I didn't realize that it really can establish itself in your body like that.
Yeah, yeah,
So, as the mold medic, this has become your life,
yeah.
and you're not everywhere. So, if we're where are you located, by the way?
So I'm currently in Tampa. We have offices in LA, New York, and
Okay.
Clearwater.
So, are you doing the same type of work like that other companies are doing? Are they all treating the mold the same way? And how do they get rid of mold in a house if they find it?
Unfortunately, not. I mean, pretty much I've developed these three fundamental procedures, if you will, that you have
Okay.
remove the colony of mold. We talked about that earlier. That may be what you physically see growing on a wall, inside of a wall cavity, et cetera. But two, you have to correct the actual opportunity that led to the mold growth in the first place. Maybe a window is leaking and that window needs
Mm,
to be fixed. Maybe you have a leaking pipe, something like that. The third and final important part is you want to remove the contamination that's been created by that source of mold. And unfortunately, that's really not part of our standards in mold remediation. It's really not taught in these classes when you go to get your certifications. It's really a thing that we've kind of left by the wayside. And I think that's the missing ingredient when it comes to someone who's sensitive to mold or has some sort of autoimmune deficiency already that's
mm.
going to make them more susceptible to environmentally acquired illness. These particles that are left in the environment thereafter, they still can get kicked up into the breathing zone, entering the body or recirculating through the HVAC. So it's really important to do that final cleaning step.
And how are you treating it? Is it a chemical that gets rid of it? Are you scraping it off? Or how do you get rid of mold?
That's a great question. We use all botanical products, so no chemicals.
Mm,
However, there are chemicals that are on the marketplace that you could use if that's something you'd prefer. But really, you want to remove it, and that's the key. In the past, we looked at it like trying to kill it, right? It's a living
mhm,
organism, so you want to kill it. We started realizing that even dead mold can actually still impact the body. It could still cause a reaction because really any allergic reaction essentially is a foreign substance entering the body and your body kind of starts to attack it, right? So we want to make sure we're removing the mold and not trying to spray things to kill it. So
mm.
HEPA vacuums that are special vacuums that can filtrate smaller particles such as mold, microfiber towels. And our cleaning solution has basically a good mix of surfactant to disinfectant. So it does soap up a bit, giving you like that degreaser, helping separate mold from the surfaces and wipe it away. And then you throw the towel away.
I'm fascinated by this because there's so many cleaning products on the market, and I go to clean a shower or something, and you think I just want to kill stuff, but I worry as a mom, three kids and pets in the house, that we're creating another problem with harsh chemicals.
Yeah.
Is that what you found to be the case? I'm hearing you talk
Yeah,
about
I mean
botanicals and natural
a
products.
lot of these chemicals, they're oxidizers. They're not good for our organs. They're oxidizing our
Mm,
organs. They do more harm than the good that they actually try to solve. So I think a lot of what can be done today can all be done with organic or botanical products, plant-based, no chemicals. Really, all you're trying to do when you're cleaning anything is you're trying to remove what's there.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm fascinated by that. And I think it's really important, sometimes overlooked,
Yeah.
that we kill things with chemicals, but we create another problem. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Where do you most often find mold? Is it around doors, in showers, because of the moist atmosphere?
Yeah, so I would say probably basements and crawl spaces
Hmm.
are the most prominent because they're below ground. So you have that hydrostatic pressure that allows moisture to intrude into the space, raising the relative humidity and creating that environment for mold to grow. It only takes 60% humidity for mold to start to grow. So it's something you want to be conscious of. The other hot spots are going to be kitchens and bathrooms, of course, with pipes and having water present. There's a potential for leaks and things like that. And believe it or not, attics are another big one. Sometimes people get new insulation installed. They just install it right over their existing insulation. They block their ventilation that is supposed to, the attic's designed to breathe. And so unfortunately, they cause themselves some harm there, don't allow that humidity to escape the attic the way it's supposed to, and it can cause some mold growth there. And I've seen that a lot.
And I'm guessing areas like where you are in Tampa, coastal, are more common areas for this issue than like I'm in Colorado and drier climates. Do you still see mold issues in drier climates?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we've gotten calls from Arizona, which happens to be a drier climate, of
Yeah,
course.
very.
And I think, it's kind of one of those things where when you're in a drier climate, you inadvertently do things to kind of make it more comfortable, such as add humidity to your
Yeah, that's right.
environment. And
Yeah.
and if you do something like that and you're not paying attention to it, or the humidistat breaks or something, and you're actually creating so much humidity that you can almost see the moisture developing on the windows or the walls, you've got too much humidity, and now you have an environment where mold can grow. So we have to be careful of how we counteract certain things, and really thinking about mold, and as we make these types of decisions.
So the first step is I'm going to call somebody, make sure that there's not mold living where I can't see it, in my
Yeah.
basement, in my air ducts, whatever. And who am I looking for? I mean, obviously you, but if you're not there, who am I looking for? Are you Googling someone in your area that is air quality expert? What would you look for?
Yeah, I mean, you can even go on, like, the ACAC is a big organization that certifies mold professionals. You can go on the ACAC's website, and it's literally acac.org, and
Okay.
go and find a professional who's certified to do it. Because I think that's really key. In some states, you have to be licensed, but not
Mm,
in all states. So you want to at least find someone who went through the trouble to get certified, went through the educational process to say, I'm a professional. But I think you also kind of want to look at it like, asking them enough questions to really understand what they plan to do is
mm,
key. It really should be like a home inspection. When you buy a house, you have this like 4-hour home inspection that takes a long time, but they find a lot of issues typically
mhm.
that that you can correct. That's how a mold inspection really should be. It should be like 4 or 5 hours really going through every nook and cranny of the home to try to find anything they can find to test and make sure that there's not an issue. Obviously, you don't want to find stuff, but you'd rather find it than not find
Yeah,
it, right? So
absolutely.
I think that that's really what it comes down to. You want to find someone who's good and thorough.
Yeah. And then asking them how they're going to treat it if they
Yeah,
find it, right?
exactly. Oh,
Can you, a lot of DIYers out there right now,
mhm.
can you do this on your own? Can you test and can you treat yourself? Is it going to be effective as an individual?
You can do anything on your own, right? I think it's really just coming down to, do you have the knowledge, right, to
Mm,
do it? Because you can make things worse. So for instance, let's say you open up a wall and you don't have your engineering controls set up properly to prevent that mold from cross contaminating in other areas. What you could end up doing by accident is, just by opening up the wall, you can release hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of mold spores that
mm,
can cross convect into other parts of the home. So at that point, you wouldn't really be removing the mold, you'd be redistributing it to other parts of the home. So that's the one thing you got to be careful when you're doing the actual removal process. And then testing too. I think when you're testing for mold, you really want to make sure that you have a good grasp on what to look for, how to sample properly,
mm.
utilizing there's actual sampling methodology standards to collect the samples, so you can make sure that you have an accurate picture of what's there.
So if say someone finds what they think would be mold spores, I don't know what else it could be, in a shower, are you, would you be pretty confident it's, if you're seeing it somewhere like that, that it's prevalent throughout that area? It's not just what you're seeing with the physical eye?
Yeah, so typically, I mean, grout's semi-porous, so
Mhm.
you tend to see it a lot in grout because obviously there's moisture in the shower area, but it's typically indicative of a problem elsewhere, right?
Mm.
Typically, there's already a source of mold inside your house that it just has the opportunity, because the spores are already in the environment, that when there's moisture prevalent in the the kitchen, the bathrooms, you'll start to see that mold growing inside the grout. So I would say it's probably a good time to get your house checked and make sure, because you may be driving yourself nuts, keep cleaning the bathroom when really the problem is elsewhere.
Yeah, and I have family with allergies, and we just assume it's pollen in the air, but it might be something else.
Could
So
be.
what an incredible topic, and one that we just don't think of enough. So I appreciate you bringing it to light. Your book, You've Become the Mold Medic, I don't know if you wanted that moniker, but it's a good one. Tell me about the book. What will people find in your book?
So the book is really 7 years of research and development, working with people who are immunocompromised, and I think that's really
Mm,
what the book has really highlighted. That I'm doing things at a level of standard that no one else is, and I kind of go through those levels of standards and what the consumer should be doing, and what the contractors who do exactly what we do should be doing for these people. In my opinion, right now there should be one standard that covers everybody, whether you're sick or not, right? Because then it would be
yeah.
the same standards. Right now, we seem to have this disparity where if you are sensitive to mold, you almost need a specialist, but it doesn't really make sense, right? Because we all call ourselves mold remediators. So why is there this disparity between one specialist and a regular contractor, if you will? So the book really dives into that and how things need to change and what we can do about it. And I give, very simple steps of what to do from top to bottom between remediation, the HVAC system, reconstructing it so you don't have a reoccurring issue. And I go into, all the different types of molds, how they impact the body, what you can do on the health side. I actually teamed up with a doctor, Michael Biamonte, to write that section of the book to kind of go over the body and how you handle the body. And it's really informative, especially if you think you have mold. It's really going to help put these steps in proper sequence for you.
So the book is for professionals, but for the consumer as well, for someone like me to say, I think one of my kids might have what's not an allergy, it could be mold, that I could dive into the book and know if maybe that's what's causing the problem.
Yeah, and I wrote it in very simple layman's terms so that you didn't need a college degree to read the book and understand how mold can potentially impact you and what you can do about it.
Wow. All right. Well, Michael, thanks so much. I really appreciate the information. I think it's really important. I'm all about natural health and helping people empower themselves to figure out what the problem is. And this is one I think gets overlooked often. So thanks for shedding some light on it.
Yes, and thanks for having me and helping with that.
You bet. Well, take care and we'll talk again soon.
Perfect.